Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Muscadine Core Momentum and Natural Health Solutions, powered by Juva and JuvaFit. I'm glad you guys are here. Tonight is our weekly call. Thanks for being here on time. And like I said, we'd like to get started. Remember, this is a wellness call, and this is no one's trying to make any claims. No one's a doctor in here. Okay, we are just sharing information and supporting each other. We have 4 different categories in the challenge for folks who are listening to this on YouTube. It'll air on Monday. We have what we call core health. We have weight loss, strong, and we also have wellness. They're all kind of intertwined, and it's an accountability group that's about 8 weeks old. I mean, 8 weeks it takes, not 8 weeks old. And we all are like just basically committed to each other to keep each other accountable and healthy and doing the best we can do and sharing information. Okay. So with that said, I do want to go over a couple things with the teams because we have a team type of thing where we have points and we listen to this call either live or on the replay. And the other one is called JuvaFit Commit, which is on Tuesday nights with a replay. And then we have a couple things we do on Messenger on Facebook, communicating each day with each other. Whether we're focused on, weight loss or wellness, might be you have to sleep so many hours per night, like 7 or more, drinking half your body weight in ounces of water, and that kind of thing. So with that said, I just want to see if everybody's checking in on time and being accountable to yourself and the team, and also there's prizes. So Jay, I'm going to start with you. Jay is from Massachusetts. How's everything going so far on the wellness challenge? And do you have any questions or anything you're trying to work on for this week that you want to share?
I'm doing well. I think a lot of the things I do already, but I just trying to move more, and I guess that it's working.
Show your face, by the way, if you can. That's great. If you can.
Yeah.
I know you're in the dark.
And then I will I'm trying to invite more people too. That's the thing that's a real challenge for me, but I think I need to know. I do best with cards. So
are you talking about the business side of things?
Well, I mean, I'm talking about
that's
both.
That's on Thursday. This is the wellness call, but that's okay. I know it gets confusing.
Okay. Well,
don't worry. Don't worry.
So I could show you.
We'll definitely talk about that. Yeah.
Here I am.
Yeah, this is perfect. Perfect. This is what you're working on your wellness this week.
Well, I'm working on moving. That's
Good.
mostly doing is moving because I do the water and the sleep. I sleep a lot, so
perfect.
I can't think of anything other than
keep up the good work. You're checking in on time, I know, and that's awesome.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't have any other questions or anything.
No problem. Perfect. I'm just gonna mute you. Okay, Ingrid. Ingrid's in Cambridge, Massachusetts. How's everything going for you, Ingrid?
Well, everything is okay.
Any questions or anything you're trying to work on this week that you want to share with everybody?
Trying to lose some more weight.
Okay. How much have you lost so far, Ingrid?
10 pounds.
Oh, yeah, you said that. That's great. And you kept it off, right?
Yes. It's kind of up and down, so I want to keep it down.
Right. Good. Well, keep up the good work. Keep drinking the water. Keep the ginger, the turmeric, the muscadine. You'll keep it down. That's good. And if you
follow
ketogenic lifestyle, great. If you don't, okay, just watch it. So great.
Yes, I watch it.
Okay. Yes. Joanne in Hawaii. I'm just going to ask to unmute you. And I'm going to just mute you, Ingrid. Okay. How's everything going for you on this challenge so far this week? And is there anything specific you want to work on or ask a question about?
Well, I have no questions, but for me personally, I'm trying to work on structured, trying to walk and do more exercise, but structured. Yes, I'm a substitute teacher, so I do a lot of walking between buildings and classes, but I'm trying to do a little more after I finish work. that
Uh-huh.
I can structure a time that this is where I'm gonna walk around the building or the park or stuff like that. And I was able to do it twice this week, which I'm happy.
Oh,
Other
that's
than that,
great.
I am getting all my water in and I did check in on
Yes,
time. So that's about it from me. I do
excellent.
feel good though. Thank you.
So keep up the good work. You're doing great. Sure, sure.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. To meet you. And Jan is in Arkansas. How's everything going, Jan, for you and your husband, Mill? I don't know if he's there.
Yeah, he's here.
Perfect. How are you guys doing?
We're good. Yo, how much have you lost? 16?
Tonight's my weight night. We'll see how much more.
Tonight is his weigh night, but so
Oh,
far
awesome.
he's lost 16 pounds. I've
That's
lost
huge.
5
And that's
pounds.
since when? Like 3 weeks ago? 4 weeks ago?
Yep, from the start. Yep.
Amazing. Congratulations. And
And
I'm
we
sure,
just got our pack yesterday.
oh,
So
good.
we're just starting all of the nutrition and you know, we had some of it, but we didn't have like the meal replacement shake or the Galaxy or anything like that. So, and the Zing. So,
Yep. So you got all that now.
yep. And we're just moving and sit up in and raising legs and doing good.
That's good. Any questions or anything you're stuck on?
Well, I didn't know how to check in, so I was late because I didn't understand that, but I think I got it now.
That's okay. Okay, great. Great. Well, keep up the good work. And the challenge,
Thanks.
as you know, it's an ongoing challenge. We keep having one over and over again. And as we all struggle to keep ourselves healthy, it's an ongoing thing. It's not a one-time thing. Some people sometimes go backwards, they give up, they come back, they realize they need it. We all do. We're all human, right? And keep going. So we just get better and better. Awesome. I'm going to mute you. I know, Walter, you're visiting, but I'm going to have you talk. I don't know, you're still working on stuff. Is there anything that you're working on or had any question about?
Well,
And Walter's in Texas.
I'm working on just making sure I stay hydrated, and I carry my emitter all the time, and
Yeah.
boy, that thing works so well, you know. And I exercise, I stretch early in the morning while I'm getting drinking my water and stuff like that right before I get going. It's
Yeah.
a good time to exercise, get loosened up while you drink the water, and and get your energy going. But early in the morning when you first get up, I use my kitchen as my workout room. And then later on in the day, I'll walk.
Yeah. Excellent. Keep up the good work, Walter. I know
Thank
we
you.
talk regularly. Sure. Just going to mute you. Steve is in Delaware. Steve, how's everything going? So, oh, did I? No, I did unmute you. Oh, no, I didn't. Ask to unmute. Sorry. Why did that? Okay. One more time. Oh, there we go. How's it going, Steve?
Good, good.
Any questions or anything going on this week that you want to focus on? Or I know you're checking in on time, that you're drinking your water and getting your sleep and whatever else you're working on. Any questions or concerns or something that you
No,
want to?
I was checking out all the products I got in the box.
Yeah.
Going through. I put on my I tried the insoles.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I put them in my work boots, and I'm seeing how those are working out. So.
And how are they working out?
I'm still testing them, so.
Oh, got it. Got it. They're pretty good. Yeah. Awesome. The only thing is, if somebody has acid reflux, they don't always work, right? Until you get a more alkaline water in you to get the acid down. So if you do, that's can be an issue in or not knowing how to use it right? But
Right.
I don't know what you're trying to make it do, but it helps with pain and balance, okay, overall. So
Okay.
good stuff. Awesome. Well, let us keep up the good work.
Okay.
And Santa Claus, all the way in Maryland, I mean. I asked to unmute you. Santa Claus Brad, I mean. And one more time, Brad. There we go. How's Santa Claus Brad doing?
I'm doing all right. No questions.
Okay. Checking in on time and everything?
I missed it this week by about an hour.
Okay. If you ever have an issue, you can always email them and tell them if you had an issue, and they'll give you full points if you had an issue. So remember that, everybody, okay? Because remember the
No, it wasn't an
accountability.
issue with them. It was an issue of me sleeping too much.
Well, you know what? That's part of your health, wellness. And I think that they're reasonable. You can always tell them that, okay?
Okay.
Oversleep it. You know, I mean, they want everybody to win, right? So it's all good stuff. Send them an email. So that's for your accountability in the teams, right? But it's all good. We're all fighting to get better. Whether we have a sleep issue or we're having whatever it is, weight issue, whatever it is, we're all just trying to work on it better. So good stuff. Awesome. I'm just gonna mute you. So everybody, I'm just going to bring it to a full, I'm going to pin myself. So thanks for being here. And again, I'm loving our wellness challenge. We're almost in the middle of it, as you guys know, for you guys, on here and also watching the replay. And I still want to get with people about your health evaluations, but let's circle back to something. Remember what we're all working on. The biggest issue is inflammation and the digestion in the gut. And remember, a lot of it is because of the things in the past and what's going on now. In the Industrial Revolution, they started feeding cows grains. They're not supposed to eat that. They're supposed to eat grass and hay. We talk about that all the time. And then in the 90s, they introduced these things called GMOs, okay? And a lot of people started having issues, okay, even more so. A lot of the issues started spiking at that point more than ever. And as you know, we always discuss how we deal with that is the ginger, the turmeric, the muscadine seed oil. And we have to repeat it all the time because I have to repeat to myself all the time because we're human. And every time we fall off of that regimen, it makes a big difference, especially when we're tracking on those wellness, surveys, okay, to go through hard tissue, soft tissue, sugar levels, and digestion. So I know that I kind of connect the dots for you guys and even myself, it takes a minute to really understand everything. So I know there was a video I watched of a farmer up in Vermont about a year ago, and I thought he really delivered it in a really good way just to give you guys some more information about misinformation and about things so you can understand, but also make your own mind up. On this challenge, what we try to do is we educate, let you decide, and we just want to give people information that's helped us, okay? And so whenever I have something like this, I like to share it so you guys can see it for yourself and hear it and all that. So again, I don't know him personally, but I like what I heard, okay? And I liked his video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you guys his farm and his video. And they're called Gold Shaw Farms, and it's up in Vermont, but he's really interesting. And here we go.
Ariel here is out to destroy the planet. They will tell you that Ariel and cattle like Ariel are the worst possible thing for planet Earth, as well as the human diet. And we really should stop raising cattle and focus on growing soybeans or something. But in today's video, I'm here to tell you that that's just a whole bunch of Ariel dookie. So my name is Morgan Gold. My farm is called Gold Shaw Farm. And we raise ducks, geese, chickens, cattle, and trees here on our farm. But we're also very focused on treating our farm like one big ecosystem and managing it in a way where it has balance and harmony, much like you'd find in nature. And while there are many studies and reports talking about just how bad cattle can be for the environment, I actually don't think a lot of those studies are accurate, or they're looking at raising cattle the right way. Because when it comes to cattle, there is a right way and a wrong way to raise these animals. So first, let's start talking about raising cattle the wrong way. It must be acknowledged that the beef industry's impact on the planet is significant. Animal agriculture's annual greenhouse gas emissions add up to about 14.5% of total emissions, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. And cattle account for 65% of the livestock sector's emissions. So very specifically, there's a lot of concern about Ariel's burps and farts. And I'm sorry, Ariel, I don't mean to single you out alone, girl. The other cattle we have on our farm are also responsible for burps and farts. And then again, all of the other cattle across the planet are making burps and farts. Those burps and farts contain a whole heck of a lot of methane. That methane is a result of the digestion process that happens from a ruminant like Ariel. You see animals like cattle, sheep, goats, they all have these multi-chambered stomachs that will take in a product like grass, which oftentimes for animals like us humans is undigestible and there's really no nutritional value to it. But with their special ruminant stomachs, they're able to break down the grass and turn it into usable nutrition, which they can then survive on. It's been a process that's been happening here on planet Earth long before you or I. The other thing is too, when you look at a big ruminant, they will produce urine, they will produce poop, and that manure also needs to compost, and as a waste product, it needs to be processed the right way. Now, just because I live in North America, I'm going to use North America as an example. Even as recently as 500 years ago, large grazing ruminants definitely ruled this continent. Just think of the North American Great Plains and how the bison would roam up and down the continent. Massive herds of animals, tightly packed together. They would go through an area, they would scarf up all of the grass, they would leave piles of manure. That manure would break down and fertilize the land and also leave organic material, which would then become soil. And that soil would get thicker and thicker and deeper over thousands and thousands of years, pretty much all the way up to the point when we had European colonization. And when that happened, the large bison herds were quickly eradicated. The land was turned to farmland. The constant tillage of that farmland ended up breaking up all the soil structure and then ended up creating that great big party of the 1920s and 30s that we affectionately know as the Dust Bowl. It sucks to be you, Tom Joad.
Well, he ain't got a soul of his own, just a little piece of a big soul.
And I bring all this uncomfortable history up because I think it's important to recognize there was a time on this continent when you had large groups of ruminants ranging across the land, and arguably the quality of the environment was never better. So for the folks who are going to immediately single out cattle, I would say that they might be displaying some reductionist thinking. But in some ways, that reductionist thinking is somewhat justified, because if you look at how most of the cattle in North America are raised now, it often can be very, very destructive. While oftentimes the calves are born out on the pasture and they spend maybe the first half of their life or first 2/3 of their life out on pasture grazing with their moms, eventually those calves are often taken to the sale barn and they end up going to feedlots. Feedlots are these massive structures where you have thousands of cattle grouped together, where they're pumped full of corn and other grains, fattened up, and then ultimately slaughtered. Now, just from an animal welfare perspective alone, I think this is a horrible way to raise an animal, and I'm strongly opposed to it. But arguably, the environmental toll is significantly worse than the animal toll. You see, when you have that many animals tightly grouped together, and they're all fed these high caloric foods that require to be raised in one place and then trucked with fossil fuels and brought to another, and then they're fed to the animals, and the animals are concentrated in one place, all eating and burping and farting and pooping and peeing and creating just an awful waste product that doesn't compost the right way. That, my friends, is an ecological nightmare. Because we raise cattle like that in the United States, cattle are often responsible for about 30% of the country's water pollution. And that method of raising cattle also means that the land required to produce a single pound of beef is 20 times more than that required to produce a pound of grain. And now another criticism of cattle is that cattle often lead to drought. An adult animal can consume as many as 50 gallons of water in a single day. There's lots of documented evidence of cattle grazing causing desertification in certain landscapes. And so, yes, the conventional way of raising cattle also causes those sorts of problems. But what if I were to tell you that if you raise cattle the right way, they can both help sequester carbon into the earth, lower the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and make our working landscapes more drought resistant? It's actually 100% true, my friends. And it's based on the principle of the carbon cycle. What's the carbon cycle, you may ask?
Greetings, young scientists. Today we're going to take a trip around our beautiful planet and learn about the most important element in all of nature, carbon. Carbon is the backbone of life on Earth. It's found in everything from the air we breathe to the plants we eat, and it's all part of a never-ending cycle known as the carbon cycle. In this cycle, carbon is constantly moving from one form to another. It enters the atmosphere as carbon dioxide from human activities like burning fossil fuels or breathing, and from natural processes like volcanic eruptions. But plants play a crucial role in this carbon cycle too. They absorb carbon dioxide from the air and store it as carbon in their leaves, stems, roots, and even the soil. This is why forests and other green spaces are so important for maintaining a healthy balance of carbon in our atmosphere. So you see, if we promote more green spaces, we can all play a role in helping reduce the amount of carbon in the atmosphere and maintain a healthy balance on our planet. And it all starts with understanding the carbon cycle and how we can work with nature to help keep it healthy and thriving. The end.
Ginny. Oh, Ginny, you got me right in the face. Just a little bit of a side venture. You're going to be wondering why my face is all bloody in this video. So I was just watching the cattle through the gate here. And usually when she climbs up me, she's climbing up my coat. And so it's fine. But she decided to try to climb on my face today using my chin as a grip point. And oh my golly. Ugh. So please excuse my appearance for the remainder of this video. Baby Ginny, that killed me. Oh, but I digress. So you see, the way we raise cattle here on our farm is we try to focus on rotationally grazing them in an intensive way as frequently as possible. As you can tell here in northern Vermont, we're in the dead of winter and we have about, 18 inches of snow on the ground right now. And so that means that there's no grass to graze. And so we feed our cattle hay in these months. But during the warm months, our cattle are out living on pasture 24/7. Throughout the course of their entire life here on our farm, I feed our cattle 0 grains. They are 100% fed grass their entire life. And if you're wondering, hay is just grass that's been dried and silage is just grass that's been fermented. During the winter months, we feed a little bit of both. But during those warm months when the cattle are out on pasture, I try to do my best to mimic nature. So what we typically are doing is, she's doing it again. The cattle are put into small little grazing cells and I use an electric wire to keep them in place. And in that one grazing cell, what I will typically find is the cattle will sit in there for somewhere between 12 and 24 hours. They will eat or trample pretty much everything in that grazing cell. They will deposit their urine and manure throughout that grazing cell in the pasture. And then a few hours later, I'll come back out and move them to the next paddock. This constant cycle that often happens multiple times a day does a magical thing. Because even though the cattle have basically trampled and eaten everything and there's poop everywhere and it's disgusting, I very quickly move the cattle to their next grazing cell and that piece of land is left to rest. And here in northern Vermont, we let the land rest for roughly 60 days before the cattle come back through and eat in that same patch again. Now, what's happening over the course of that 60 days is the grass is bouncing back, it's growing. I'm sending my chickens through that same patch of land and the chickens are spreading the manure all throughout the area, as well as eating a lot of the fly larvae, as well as depositing some manure of their own. My geese are coming through that same area as well, and they're eating some of the grass and picking through some of the grass as well and depositing even more manure. And that grass is going through a process of growing again. Now, you guys with lawns, have you ever noticed that when you cut your lawn, the grass seems to grow fastest in those first 2 weeks after you cut it, but if you're lazy and you don't feel like cutting it when it gets longer, it starts to slow down its growth? Well, that's because most varieties of grass tend to grow the fastest when they're in those teenage years. And so that's when they're oftentimes growing as much as possible. And again, back to the idea of the carbon cycle, they're drawing carbon down into the soil. And by doing that process as rapidly as possible, you're able to sequester as much carbon as possible. And all of the organic material, particularly from the cattle manure and the goose manure, as well as the fact that the roots of the grasses are growing more, all of that stuff working together ultimately leads to the fact that you're going to add more organic matter to that soil. And the more organic matter your soil has means it's going to be like a sponge. It's going to soak up water and absorb water more. It's going to retain that water in times of drought. When you have massive downpour and flood events, it's going to be more resilient and store more of that water and prevent runoff and soil erosion. And then the fact that you have this landscape of grass means you don't have bare soil, which is reflecting heat and carbon back up into the atmosphere. So this rapid, intensive grazing is what's ultimately helping improve the landscape. But then the other factor that's at play that I feel like people don't talk often enough about is the fact that you have greater landscape diversity. You know, there's a lot of folks who are, say, vegan minded, who are environmental advocates. will often talk about the fact that you get more production out of an acre of soybeans than you would out of an acre dedicated to cattle. And on a sheer number of calories basis, that is accurate. But I see that as very much reductionist thinking, and I don't see it taking into account the holistic activity that's happening around that acre of cattle grazing. Because like I said earlier, we often pair our cattle with our chickens and or geese. So an acre dedicated to cattle is also supporting poultry. And when I look at my farm holistically, let's be clear that the animals on our farm are not just limited to the domesticated farm animals. You know, if I look at an acre of pasture here on our farm, you have small creatures like mice and voles and moles. You have a myriad of songbirds and other types of birds going through there. We raise honeybees here on our farm. Coyote, bear, bobcat, foxes, they all range around here too on the regular. Massive populations of white-tailed deer, small populations of moose. And that's just the fauna here on the farm. When it comes to the flora, the diversity of our pasture seems to increase every year with what we're doing here in our farming practices. Certain native species of grasses seem to be bouncing back. And then we're also very, very focused here on our farm with growing trees. And so chestnuts, mulberry, black locust, apple trees, beech nut, butternut, ash, pine, cedar, fir. We have a very, very diverse set of trees scattered around this farm, whether it's in our silvopastures or in our forest or on the edges surrounding the perimeters of the pasture. That makes the farm a very productive and diverse landscape. And so, yes, the 1 cow per acre is roughly the rule of thumb that works here on our farm. And that 1 cow or steer is going to produce less calories for a human than an acre of soybeans. But seriously, folks, at what cost? Because for all of those people advocating that we grow soybeans rather than have beef, I really wonder if they've ever actually been to a soybean field. Because if you look at a production scale soybean field, even one that's employing organic practices, what you're often going to find is a desolate, barren landscape. Soil that is brittle and often dead, very little in terms of biodiversity of insects. I mean, heck, some of those practices are even proven to have killed bees. There's very little, if any, larger animals living in that area. And oftentimes after harvest, that land can be left barren, and that will heat up the earth as well as create runoff and erosion. You know, if you look at the headlines and a lot of the discussion out there in the media lately, one of the things you'll notice is a lot of folks touting things like the Impossible Burger or Beyond Burger because their ecological impact is significantly less than beef. But if I look at a recent Qantas study, what you'll find is that if you're calculating the total net of greenhouse gas emissions per pound of a finished product, if you look at conventional beef, it's generating roughly 33 pounds of greenhouse gases for every finished pound of beef. I know, that's pretty awful, right? But then if you look at the Beyond Burger, it's only generating 4 pounds of greenhouse gases per finished product. And if you look at the Impossible Burger, it's only generating 3.5 pounds of greenhouse gases for every finished pound of fake hamburger. But then if you look at beef that's raised in intensive rotational grazing methods, which is basically what we're doing here at our farm, what you're going to find is for every pound of beef you produce, you actually sequester 3.5 pounds of carbon into the soil. So you heard that right, my friends. Cattle like ours actually are carbon negative when they're used to produce food. And if you're a skeptic like me, you might be saying that it just sounds like greenwashing and can't possibly be true. But when you think about it, it actually makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. Because for most of the year, our cattle consume 0 fossil fuels, right? Rather than bringing them food, we're bringing them to the food. And like I explained earlier, that practice of them eating down the grass only triggers the grass to grow again, which only sequesters more carbon. And while I do have to use a little bit of fossil fuels to feed them in the winter months, the amount of carbon sequestration that they're doing in the warm months completely makes up for it, and then some. Good morning, large weight farm dogs. How are you guys doing? Now, I don't share all this information with you guys to say, oh, look at us, our farm's perfect and our poop does not stink. Rather, I share this information with you guys to say that our poop smells less than you might think. So right now we're inside our hoop coop. This is the winter home for our ducks, geese, and chickens. By harnessing the energy of the sun, we're able to actually keep our birds warm without any sort of electricity or anything else. You can even see in here, we installed a thermometer to measure a couple spots inside the greenhouse. And so while it's about 14 degrees outside of the hoop coop right now, it is a balmy almost 36, 37 degrees inside. That just shows you what you can get when you harness the power of nature. I think the other thing to recognize too is, right? So all of their bedding right now captures their poop. And later this year, when things warm up and the birds move out of here, I'll come in and pick up all the bedding and use it as compost to help grow stuff in our garden, as well as help fertilize our trees. We also do something very similar with our cattle manure from the winter months as well. But like I said earlier, in the warm months, you have all of these birds plus the cattle doing their business out on the pasture and helping improve the growing capability of our land without having to use a drop of fossil fuels. Are you pecking at my foot, girl? Really? Stop pecking! Now, like I said earlier, though, the way we farm is not perfect by any means. You know, for example, in the winter months, I got to feed my birds. And even though geese are actually the most sustainable form of
All right, that's enough of that, but I hope you guys found that to be helpful. I love that video. Like I said, I found it when he first aired it about a year ago, and I'm like, this is exactly what we're talking about. And I think that he does it in a really good way. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope that that makes some more sense to you guys. It sure did for me. It made a lot more things clearer in terms of, you know, like I said, we educate, let you decide, and just giving you some information. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and I think the more you see, but that's why grass-fed in the store is such a big deal, but I don't think everybody understands how to connect the dots, and I think he does a really good way of doing that. So hopefully you guys found that to be well, and hope you guys enjoyed the call tonight. And again, this will be airing live tomorrow on our YouTube station. If you're not subscribed, please do so. And love your comments and feedback. And again, everybody on the challenge, don't forget Tuesdays are JuvaFit Commit and time to check in. And then we will also have more videos on the Natural Health Solutions coming out there besides tomorrow on Wednesday and Friday as well. So make sure you subscribe so you can hear about all that other information. With that said, everybody, have a great night. And thanks for joining us on our wellness call on JuvaFit Commit / Muscadine Coral Momentum and Natural Health Solutions. Have a good night.
Night, everybody. Thanks, Steve.
Night.